So for this Excel module, I'm going to demonstrate a couple of some Excel functions to you, how to do some stuff in Excel and how to look up formulas and such. And there's going to be no discussion in this module. Okay, and the files you're going to use for this demonstration, now this is not the Excel grader assignment, this is separate from this. The files you're going to use are this importing a text file and the Excel lessons file. Okay, and there's a quiz this module as well. So the Excel lessons file is right here. Okay, here you can see the spreadsheet as it's opened. So in Excel you have spreadsheets, and that's this whole thing right here. It's all a spreadsheet, right? And they're identified. The columns which go up and down are identified by letters, and the rows which go across are identified by numbers. In each individual sheet is called a worksheet, and all together they make a workbook. So there's at least one worksheet in each workbook. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to do a couple things. Some of this stuff you have done if you've done the grader assignment already. If you haven't, you will do some of it in the grader assignment, so it will help you if you haven't done it. I'm going to also show you how you can enter some data into Excel and some other Excel functions you can do here. Now some of this stuff is going to come in very handy in further classes, because when you take accounting, you're going to be doing some Excel, and you'll use some of this, and I can't go over all the formulas, so I'm going to show you how to look up some formulas and do that. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I have three workbooks here. Excuse me, three worksheets here. I'm going to hit this plus sign. I'm going to add another one. So I'm going to show you how to import some data. Now I have a file here. It's called import comma. It was one of the ones that you brought in, and here it is right here. Right? It's just a bunch of data surrounded by commas. And so I'm going to put my cursor right here in cell A1, and then I'm going to go to my data tab, and I want to get external data right here, and I'm going to say from text. And when I go from text, it's looking for this data, and I have it on the desktop, and it's in the folder called Excel Lessons. Here it is right here, import comma, right here. Now this is delimited, it's comma delimited file, and we can see that we can preview the data right here, and this is what we want. We want delimited. I click next. And do we know what it's delimited with? Well, we do, because I made this. It's comma delimited, so you can check comma, and you can see already wherever there was a comma, it is turned it into a column. Okay, we're going to go next. Now we're going to identify each data type on each different column. We can skip importing a column if we want to. We're not going to do that. We're going to import every column, and we're going to actually make every single one general. So if I hold down the shift key, you've clicked the first one, hold down the shift key, move over and click the last one, and I have it set here to general, and I can just go finish. Now it says, where do I want to put these? And it gives me the equal $A equal $1. Do I want to put them there? A1, that's where I had the cell, and yes I do. If I click OK, there are the values. Now you may be importing text from a database. You can import text from online. You can get, you can get data from anywhere. It doesn't have to be something that has been either entered by hand by you, or anything you can export into a comma delimited file or tab delimited file, you can import into Excel this way. So I'm going to get rid of this data. Okay. So Another way we can enter data into Excel is based on a pattern. So I can go 1, 2, 3, and Excel's going to recognize this pattern. If I highlight that and I move my mouse over to the handle, which is the square corner, and pull down, it recognizes that pattern and it fills it in accordingly. So that pattern doesn't have to be numbers exactly 1, 2, 3, 4. It can be 2, 4, 6, and it's going to recognize that pattern as well. Copy that on down just like that. It can also recognize even abbreviations, January, February, and I want to highlight that. Right, and it's going to fill that in. Now you can create your own patterns. This has to be a recognized pattern, something that is legitimately a pattern. But it can even be something like if you're working on a book and it's version, you got version 1.1, version 1.2, version 1.3, right? That's a pattern. And Excel will recognize that and it can fill it in accordingly, right? And so that's one way to enter data, and that's like a great way to do it. It's very time saving, right? If you're a lazy typer like I am, right? And Excel does a much better job of this than I could. Okay, and so now one of the things I want to show you is how would I want to look up formulas if I want to do formulas. We're going to do some formulas in a minute, but I can't cover all the formulas. There's hundreds of formulas in Excel. So you can look up formulas. You can go to the formula bar, and what type of formula do I want? Financial. Like, here are all the financial formulas. A date and time formula, a text formula, logical formula, some of the recently used formulas. So I can go back to the Home tab, and this section right here is the formula bar, right in here where I'm typing right now. That's the formula bar, and it's actually typing in the active cell that you're in. So I'm going to go in active in cell A1, and if I type in there, right, it goes into cell A1. But let's say I want to create a function right in there. So I'm going to put some numbers in there. And I'm going to put a function in cell A25. And if I don't know how to, maybe I want to do an average. Well, I know how to do an average if I was going to just do math on paper. But I want to do it in a spreadsheet, and I want to do it so if these numbers change, it will recalculate. So I want to use the cell references. How do I figure out an average? How do I look that up? The easiest thing to do really is click on the FX, which is insert a function. And now it says, well, what do you want to do? And I know that the one I want is average. But let's just type up in here, calculate average, right? Search for a function, say go. Now it's going to bring back a bunch of possible, these are all average functions in it. So it's got the top one here, average, that's the one I want, selected. And it gives you a little brief description right here. Average returns the average, the arithmetic means of its arguments, which can be numbers, names, or arrays, or references that contain numbers. Well, that's what I want. And I can build the formula right from here. So that's pretty easy. I can go OK. And this function arguments comes in here. And I can just, it's already guessing what I want, and it's guessing correctly, A1 through A4. Right? So I can just go OK. And it tells me that my average is 12.5, which is correct. Right? So you can look up all kinds of functions that way, and that works nicely. Right? Just click in the FX bar, and if you'll notice when we figured it in, it puts the answer right in here, so you don't even have to go and look for it. It gets the numbers that it's selecting in A1 through A4 right in here as well. So that's kind of nice. So now I'm going to go to the payment function, and in the grader assignment, we're going to do, if you haven't done that yet, a payment calculation. So I'm going to show you how to do a payment calculation right now. We're going to do it a couple different ways. So say we want to calculate a payment, right? And so we're going to calculate a payment on a car payment, and we want to use the payment function. Now I'm not going to look up the payment function, but you could look it up just by clicking on the FX bar and go payment. And I had a little apostrophe at the end there, payment. And it's going to bring up, and this one is the one we want here, calculates a payment for a loan based on constant payments and a constant interest rate. So we can use that, and we can build it right here. And it says, well, what is the rate? Well, the rate is 3%, right? So we click on the F6, and then the next one is what is the total number of payments for the loan? So it's going to be 5 years, which is 5. But that's not the total number of payments. That's just how many years. So now we have to multiply that by 12, right, to get the actual number of payments. And you can see at the end it says 60. And now we want the present value. How much are we borrowing? So let's just say we're going to borrow $12,000, right? And then we want an FV, which is the future value, or the cash balance when you want to attain the last payment is made as 0. The last two arguments here are optional, so we don't have to put these in. I'm sorry, I forgot. So you say OK, and it puts your payment in there. Now the payment's $433.60, and you see that it's negative because at Microsoft they consider this money going out, so that's a negative figure. And if you ever have to make it positive, and you will in the greater assignment, as you may also in other classes, you can, and I'm going to just press F2 and I can modify this function. I can just get in front of the 12,000 and make that a negative number by putting a minus sign in front of it, and then when I hit enter, it's a positive number, right? And that's what you want to do, right, to make it constant number. So now I'm going to calculate a whole graph of payments, right? So maybe I want to make a table on some payments that I'm going to make. And now I'm also going to want to use absolute and relative references for cells, and I'll try to explain them as I go along. So, but we're going to use the same function here, which is equal payment. Equal payment. And the first is the rate. And the rate is along the top row. You can see it's starting in M1, in N1, in O1, P1, and Q1. So as I progress through this table, and I want to look under that column, I need the formula to move over with it. Because if we copy formulas, they will copy over with us. Let's go do that in another sheet. I'll show you what I mean. So we calculated the average here. Let's just do some more, just regular math. So I'm going to go 5 plus 15 plus 35, 65. And I'm just going to go equals sum. I'll select all these again and closing parenthesis, and there's my total. Now if I have some more numbers over here, and over here, I can calculate those formulas really quickly right there, but I can also copy formulas over like this, right? And if you notice, in here the formula I copied over was A1 to A4, but when it copied over, it moved over to B1 and B4. That's because it changed the reference. That was a relative reference. This reference here is relative to up here. This reference here is relative to what's above it. This one is relative to what's above it, so it changed the cells for me. So that's relative reference. So that's important, because if you're figuring out, say, the payments, the cost of something that you're purchasing, and say our sales tax is 8%, right, which is right here. Here's our sales tax. I'm going to put this in a little table right there. So there's our sales tax right there in O2. And so I'm going to calculate our sales tax, and I'm going to go equals sum A5 times O2. And the sales tax is $9.06. I guess we better format this all into money. So I just select it all, right click and go format cells. It's very slow. Currency. Okay. So it's $9.60. So if I copy this over, watch what happens. It's 0. Well, that's not right. And why is that? Because it copied that O2 over to P2, and there's nothing in P2. So that doesn't work. Right? So I have to change that formula. And I have to change it from what is an absolute reference. I'm going to go up and start typing in the formula bar. That's where I'm typing now. So I still want it to be cell O2, but I need it to be an absolute reference. So what I do to get that is I'm going to put a $ in front of the O and in front of the 2. That means when I copy it, it's going to stay O2 no matter how I copy this. And I can either type in their $O and $2, or I can press the F4 key. When I press the F4 key, they appear. If I press it again, it's going to move just in front of the 2. If I press it again, it's just in front of the O. If I press it again, it's gone altogether. But I want it in front of both, so I'm going to go like that. Okay, so now that makes that reference O2 absolute. So when I copy it, it won't change. So now when you see when I copy it this time, you'll see they work. And if you look in the formulas now, it didn't move. It stayed at O2. Okay, so that's what an absolute reference is, right? The first time we did it up here, it was a relative reference, and the cell references moved as we moved. But here, that O2 cell reference didn't move. The B5 one did, because I didn't make it an absolute reference. Okay, so we're going to go back over here to the payment sheet, and we're going to use that relative reference to make this sheet. So we're going to say equals payment, and we want it to be, we're going to start with cell M1, right? But we need this to be an absolute reference, but not completely absolute. And we need it to be absolute in the sense that it's only going to move across the row. It's not going to stay in the same column. So we're going to press the F4 until the $ is in front of the 1. And that's the way we want it right there. Okay. So now we're going to go comma. And the next one we're going to put in is, oh wait, the interest rate, I'm sorry. But the interest rate, we have to go divided by 12. Because we're doing a yearly thing. Divided by 12. Comma. And then the years borrowed, and that's just going to be, we have the years in total up in L2, so it's just going to be L2, and this is never going to change, right? It's, or excuse me, L1. I put it L1, and this is never going to change. So this is always, it's going to be a complete absolute reference with a $ in front of both letter and number, comma. We don't have to put times 12 here because it's already in months. And then now we want to figure out the rate, which starts in L2, and it's going to move down, but only, it's going to stay in the L column. So we want the $ in front of the L. It's going to stay in the column, but not the row. So $ L2, right? And that should be it. And it's -805. And actually, what I had to do up here when I finish that is I made an error. I should have hit Control Enter, but you can see it's copying it this way. But if we had, if you hit Control Enter when you finished it, it would have filled all the cells in at once. When you see the railroad tracks like that, it means that there's not enough room for the number. So there's our table. But if when you had finished typing it at the first time when it was on there and you hit Control Enter, it will do the whole thing. Okay, so that's how you do a table, payments, and how you calculate payment. Now we're going to go over and do VLOOKUP. And so for this one, it would be like we're going to look up for a like an inventory management. So we're going to start here in column B, and we're going to go equals VLOOKUP, and we're going to look up what's in column A1, right? And then we're going to, what table array do we, well, we're going to have, we better go define a table. So I'm going to start right here. I got rid of the formula. And our table is going to start in cell A3, and we're going to go over and down to cell I-47. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to define this as products table. And I think it looks like it went over into J, but it should be I. Everything seems locked up here. Products table. So now if I'm not in the products table and I want to know where it is, I can go products table, there it is. Okay, now we can use it in a formula, which we do in the Excel grader assignment, or if you've already done that, VLOOKUP, we're going to look up A1, comma, and what table are we going to look in? The products table, and there it is right there, comma. What column do we want to look up to? We're going to look up the second column, that's the one we're in, comma. We want an exact match, so we're going to say false, and that's it. So how this works is, it says NA because there's nothing in 1 right now, but if we type in a number that is in this column, NWTS, let's say NWTS, it's got to be exact, -65, it's going to tell me what product is in that, what that is, right? So if I go in here and I do the same thing, equals VLOOKUP, A1, comma, products table, comma, column index now worth 3, comma, and again exact match, closing parenthesis, and then it brings us, and we could go across and fill these in, but you can see what it's doing now. And I realize for a small table like this, I can just look through here and find it. But if you're working somewhere that has a table that is 500,000 entries, well, that's going to be a little more difficult. So you'll want to do it this way. Okay, so that's an exact match, right? So that you use that often. You also use an approximate match. I'm going to do it here, an approximate match for gradebook, but you may want to do an approximate match for sales commission, or you'll see one in the grader assignment. I think that's an approximate match. I don't remember if it's an approximate or an exact, but you use that when you're not going to exactly match a value, but you're going to get as close to it as you can. And that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to go equals VLOOKUP, same thing. And there's actually a horizontal lookup also, but that's not used as often. So we're going VLOOKUP, and we're going to look up the score, which is in cell right now E2, Um, and we're going to create a letter grade for it. So E2, and what's the table array? Well, here's a table array. I could go ahead and name this, or I can just highlight the table array. Here it is right here. A2 through B13, right? And I do want the whole thing to be absolute, so I'm going to hit the F4 key because I'm going to copy it down for other grades, right? I'm going to go comma. I'm going to return the second column, comma, and I want an approximate match this time, right? Because some of the values may not be in the table, and I need them to show up as well anyway, right? I want to get as close to that number as I can. Right now, I'm going to go enter, and I got a B minus for an 81. And if you look over in the grades table, there's no 81 in there, right? But if I get between 80 and 83, or 80 and 82, right, I get a B minus. If I get 83, I get a B. 81 is a B minus. So now I can put some other grades in here like 70, or excuse me, 40, 73, 86, and these grades don't, the 73 does appear, but the 86 doesn't appear. And if I copy this down, you can see that it's calculating the grades for them properly. I see that 94 is not correct. It shouldn't be A minus, it's A. And that's just because it auto-filled in. So if I have 95, and I copied this down, right, it's going to give you an A. So that's how approximate matches. There's no 95 in there, but if it's at least 94 or above, it calculates it to the approximate value. That's how approximate works. So that's really all there is for this Excel, and there will not be a module for Thanksgiving week. You guys have a break for Thanksgiving week. Have a nice holiday, and see you the week after Thanksgiving.